We're back here on the program, the platform, and in the earlier section we were talking about Nygard Slims. But Peter Nygard has a tremendous amount of interests in the Bahamas, as many Bahamians would know, and he's been providing tremendous amount of entrepreneurial services in the country and facilitating a number of projects. And one of the things that he is interested in is, one of his interests in the world really, is stem cell research. But before we talk about stem cells, Peter Nygard, let's talk a little bit about investments in the Bahamas generally. You would know that Bahamians have been very disturbed, very distraught, some people were, on the extent to which the Bahama project has not been able to get going. And I saw in recent times there's been a connection between what you were doing and Bahama.
Isn't that silly ads that they're throwing in there? Like Baker's throwing the silliest ads in the world, you know, trying to tie together the Bahama and Nygard Key as if there's some parallel to those things from the government point of view, that the government presumably wants to take back Bahama but wants to give Nygard Key. I mean, this is getting so childish now, and everybody's laughing at it. Though it's like a laughing stock. Now, the Bahama is a sad, sad story, a sad testimonial to really a very, very incompetent person who really cannot deliver what he promised to do in the first place. This Sakis guy. I mean, he's way over his head. Always has been. You know, and the difference between him and Saw Kersner is like night and day. Saw came in there and made the thing happen, you know, and it's very proud established living. And I know he was a personal friend of mine. What's his name? Sakis? I don't even know his name because he's just a little boy who was playing with his daddy's money, you know, and then is way over his head, you know, and loses complete control of the thing, and then has the gall to try to do an end run on the Prime Minister after talking with him, and then has the gall to try to do all this political campaigning to make it seem as if the Prime Minister is wrong here, you know, as if it's his fault, you know, as not negotiated. My God, the Prime Minister has gone out of his way to try to make this thing happen, you know. So he really, really played a dirty trick on the Bahamian people, and continued to do that. Now they're using it as a political campaign to try to get the Prime Minister out. You know, these guys shouldn't have any place. He's a good friend of Bacon's. You know, I can see that they're cut from the same kind of thing. This is dishonest stuff. You know, this is very dishonest. And if he made a deal to deliver that product, and he had a lot of concessions got from the Bahamian government, a lot of concessions from everybody in the process, he needs to raise the money and do that job, whatever it takes, you know, instead of trying to, you know, he's trying to do, his bankruptcy thing is to steal it from everybody else. Because, you know, the bankruptcy like that is to make a deal with your creditors, you know, and get them to try to pay for your mistakes, you know. So I think it's a sad testimonial that such a great project that was supposed to be a great project has gone so sour. And
so were you amused at all with the connection between what you want to do and your project in the Bahamas and that of Bahama?
Well, of course, you know, Bacon's been busy trying to block me from doing anything in Bahamas, you know, and one of the things I've been, of course, going to be doing in Bahamas is this whole major stem cell project, you know, which, quite frankly, that development was going to be more significant than Bahama in itself, you know, and more important to Bahamians at the end of the day. You know, and quite frankly, that project could have been part of Bahama, you know, at the end of the day, and I even reached out to do that, you know, but the Bacon's issue has been is to anything that I touch, or indeed now the Prime Minister touches, he just wants to throw gas on it and try to belittle it some way, and even now these ads that are going on, they're doing the same kind of thing. So yes, the issue of not being able to get on with this major project of the stem cell clinic and this loss that we developed early, now 3 years ago, That's been blocked off constantly now by this Bacon, and it's unfortunate, you know.
But I understand you never wanted to develop this at your place at Lyford Key.
Of course not. You know, this is like a $500 million project where you could put a stem cell. This was a setup to try to get the people of Lyford Key upset so that they can fake it and get them to put an injunction against the government not to allow me to put a stem cell clinic in Nygard Key. Now that's the most ridiculous thing that anyone could possibly have heard, but they made it, and this Tribune falsely writes it up, you know, because their Tribune's a totally bought off by Bacon, you know, and that they would just salute to whatever he wants them to say. And so they wrote the silliest article of all, and then they paraded around with this article, some of the people in Lyford Key said, look, Mr. Nygard wants to do a stem cell clinic at Nygard Key, which is absolutely not true. Please sign here to get an injunction to stop him from doing it, you know, and there was no such truth to it. So you know what they did? When it came down to seeing public exposure as to what we are going to do, because we have to do it publicly, they announced it in the paper that we have all of this is totally open, transparent. They managed to get the Michael Majors, paid him off to remove 3 pages from the public exposure. 3 pages, like 38, 39, 40, out of the submission.
Michael Major took
3 pages out of the submission.
That is your belief?
Yes, it's I have some proof of that.
Okay.
You know, I have some proof of that. If he wants to sue me for that, I'll be more than happy to do that. And then they went to the people of Lyford Key and said, look at here, the submission. What do you think is in these 3 pages? This is the hidden agenda. There was nothing. Immediately next day, they put those 3 pages back. But the damage had been done. They already put the injunction in and refused to take it back. In other words, a fraudulent thing.
Yeah. You've been a part of these so-called judicial reviews for a little while here in the Bahamas. Your name is your name is all through the registry of the court.
My God! You see, that's his objective. His objective is to have me look like a bad boy. You know, that I'm always in trouble with the law and always trouble with the, and so we get this falsified injunction 3 years ago that I had nothing to do with. There was a lot of Clifton. And they had somehow included that injunction to Nygard Key, that's a mile away, you know, to include all of the work that's going to be done in Clifton and all through that whole bay to be injunction so that they cannot do any work at all. You know what the injunction was all about, first of all, in Clifton? The injunction was to stop Code Smith from rebuilding the dock for the Bahamian people that Bacon and his operatives had torn down, the dock that they used to use all the time to go fishing for their livelihood, you know, and they tore it down and closed off that whole capability. And Code, who's been a warrior for all his life about trying to get Clifton free and for the people, you know, he was leading that whole fight earlier. He was busy building that dock or repairing it. And they threw an injunction against him and included me into it way out there in Nygard Key, you know, and prevented him to do it. So people could not use that beach. And that injunction has been sitting there now for 3 years, and the judge will not hear it. It is unheard of in the legal world. The USA's people there are laughing at it. This is making mockery of the judicial system in Bahamas. No one in the world has an injunction sitting there for 3 years and refusing to really hear it.
Yeah.
So these so-called judicial reviews have been artificially set to stop me and stop the Prime Minister from approving any project that I'm involved with, you know, until they can get to the election and then vote in and try to get the new government to come in, and that new government then presumably is going to decide that I can't do any of this.
I see.
It's a nasty, nasty plan, you know.
Yeah. On your stem cells project, you've been involved in research for a long time. You've brought people to the Bahamas, experts to the Bahamas. You've done a tremendous amount of work on this. Where are you now on it?
It is extremely exciting where I am with it now. It's not exciting where I am with it in Bahamas as such, because of what we talked about a few minutes ago, because I've been blocked off from doing any of that. And the Prime Minister has to take corrective action to deal with this baking guy. But it is exciting as to how far this has now progressed in the reality of what this stem cell work can do. This business is growing exponentially. Every day new and new discoveries are being made about therapies that are curing incurable diseases of sort. I can't even keep up with the reading of it. But the difference between now and a year ago is huge. Now, since I'm specific, I don't know, we showed that tape earlier where I had discovered and I turned myself to age 0. And in that, what that said in there, that in that case, what it's taking is these embryonic stem cells that are my own, and I can then inject them back into my own body and rebuild my body parts. That's huge. Now, in order to do that, you have to make sure that they're safe. So in the last year now, I've been spending lots of money to prove in scientific way to FDA approvals to make sure that they're safe for usage. They're safe. And now I'm going to start next week taking the first of those shots myself.
Your own stem cells?
My own protein of my stem cells. They're called exosomes. Now these are get to be pretty technical words, but they're a protein of my stem cells that are relatively safe but work as well as the stem cells themselves. In this science, they're discovering more and more and finer tuning of really what is really working and what doesn't work. For example, these are very interesting topics. They call it a protein called GDF11. They connected an old mouse and a young mouse blood supply, so it flows through both of them. In there, they found that the old mouse got young. Old mouse got young simply by connecting their blood supply. So in that young mouse blood, there was some kind of young proteins in there and they found out that one of the key proteins was called GDF11. There's a whole GDF series. GDF11 was a key one. And the GDF11 became a very major protein now that makes you young. But then there's lots of other ones in NOCA. So I'm talking about the very molecules now we're talking about. And it's interesting now, for example, these exosomes I'm going to take, I uploaded those exosomes to GDF11. Now, I may show off here a little bit because this is very fancy talk now. Now, it's fancy in the sense that it's right up there at the top of the food chain, This is very high-level stuff that's, blessed by the top medical scientists in the world. So we are also going to be taking cord blood. Now, I've talked to many, many people already earlier that we should all save our umbilical cords. Bahama doesn't do that. Canada does it all the time. We've been saving umbilical cords now for 20 years, 15 years. They're finding tremendous amount of new energetic stem cells and blood and everything in those now. And they're starting to use that now. If, for example, and I would really like to get this going in Bahamas very quickly, no person here should really be taking their child and then cut that umbilical cord off and throw it in the garbage. That should be stored absolutely right now. And if I got this thing going, that's the first thing I would do. It's so valuable. Actually, that's a lifeline for that child's future medicine. Because after think about it, it's actually part of them already, and you can't freeze it, hold it, and they've got all the good stuff you can take out of it. And 20 years from now, they're going to find so much to do with it that could keep that person alive for 50 years.
So you'd wish a storage facility for umbilical cords?
Yeah, for example, to start with, there's so much that we should be doing right now for the people of Bahamas, and it doesn't take very much to have this storage facility. By the way, it's like a $3,000 tank, the nitrogen that keeps it in there. I'm storing a lot of my own stem cells in the same thing, so this stuff can be stored forever, basically in a special compound. But all we'd have to do is to get all the doctors over here that when they do an operation or the birth, they save that. You know, and you heard probably about the clinics, abortion clinics, and they're very controversial about keeping. They've been keeping the aborted fetuses, forever, and it has a tremendous amount of value for somebody. And psychologically, it sounds so awful, but you're just talking about this happens. You shouldn't throw it away. It's life for so many people. In other words, there's so much we can do now, in terms of making a better life and getting better medicine people right here in Bahamas right now, just in getting going with this knowledge that we have and can generate. But taking this umbilical cord now, I'd be taking stem cells from umbilical cords. Because it's the best, freshest one. You can take stem cells out of your own fat, Now, if I take it out of my own fat, that's 70-year-old, 74-year-old stem cells. They're old. You take an umbilical cord, they're young. They're very young. Those young ones are so much more energetic than the old ones, So, and those stem cells get old, because as your body gets old, so does the stem cells. In fact, that's why you get old, And